I am Heidi Benjaminson, your host of Confidence Coaching, a podcast for mothers who want to stay calm, anchored, and like how they show up in the world. Life isn't a spectator sport. Success comes to those who show up every day with a pocket full of courage, grit, and a little sparkle. I'm glad you're here. Hello. Welcome to episode 195, Self-Reflection with Grace and Compassion. Today's episode is a follow-up to one of our recent conversations on self-reflection, episode 193. So let's jump right in. What happens when we don't like what we see? When self-reflection brings up shame, regret, or fear? As I thought more about the episode after it was published, and as I reflected on my very raw and vulnerable journey of self-awareness, I realized I want to give you specific tools to manage these emotions and move through them. So self-awareness and self-reflection, they change us only if we're able to feel them. So today we're talking about how to use self-compassion and grace when we see our humanness, our faults, and our missteps, and how this gentle lens is exactly what creates the deepest growth. Okay, let's walk through this together. So why is it hard to see ourselves clearly? Let's be honest, seeing our own patterns can sometimes hurt when we realize we've been over-controlling, we didn't see warning signs of trouble, we've reacted with fear instead of trust, we've made our children responsible for our emotional well-being. And suddenly the guilt hits. The voice of perfectionism pipes up. I should have done better. I've messed them up. I failed. This is where most people shut down. They either spiral into shame and self-punishment or deny the truth to protect their ego. But both block real growth. Shame says hide and stay in the dark, and shame cannot live in the light. Shame says we are bad. And denial is one of the most disempowering states. Ironically, our power comes from facing and accepting reality. So why do shame and denial appear as the first options for all of us? Because we live in a world that idolizes perfectionism and demonizes weakness and faults. We get these subtle and not so subtle messages from a young age and from sources that usually mean no harm. Perfectionism tells us there's no room for error. It tricks us into thinking that mistakes equal unworthiness. And when it comes to parenting, that fear runs deep. As mothers, our greatest fear is that we might hurt our child, fail to protect them, or not be there when they need us. So when we see moments that we aren't our best, it can honestly feel unbearable. And let me say, I have been there. The tool to combat this is self-compassion. Here's the truth I want you to hold on to. We can see our flaws and still be deeply worthy of love, 100% worthy of love from ourselves and from others. That's not a weakness. That's emotional maturity. Self-compassion isn't a cop-out. It's not saying, oh, well, I did my best. It's saying, I see what I did. I understand why I did it. I choose to learn and do better. Self-compassion opens the door to growth without shame. So let me tell you about Rachel, a mom I coached last year. Well, she's a composite of a lot of clients. After her son went to college, she realized that she'd spent his senior year constantly nagging about grades, deadlines, responsibilities. She told me, I thought I was helping. I now see I was just trying to manage my own anxiety. Rachel felt ashamed. She wanted to call him and apologize every day. She wanted to take it all back. But instead, we worked on self-compassion. She wrote herself a letter that can be summarized like this. I see now that I was scared. I wanted the best for him. I was doing what I thought would protect him. I forgive myself, and I can love myself enough to do better now. And then she talked to her son, not with drama, but with humility. When he came home from a break and they had a moment of connection, she said, I realize I was hard on you last year. I'm learning more about myself. I love you and I trust you. Notice how she stayed firmly in her lane, only talking about how she showed up and taking responsibility for her growth. No blame. That one conversation softened their dynamic. She modeled emotional maturity. Their calls became more frequent. He opened up because she became safer to him. Not perfect, but emotionally healthy. She showed him how to accept weaknesses in a regulated and connected nervous system state. And she then showed how she could do this without shame and how this really creates connection, which is what we all crave. Okay, here are 5 tools we can use when self-reflection hits a habit or belief that we want to shift. Number 1, name it without judgment. Say this, oh, I notice I do this. Not, I'm terrible because I do this. Language matters, y'all. I'm learning is more powerful than I'm failing. As I went down this awareness road many years ago, I saw I had this very subconscious thought driving a lot of my life, a thought that I was always right. I learned to see it with curiosity. I notice I need to be right, even in my mind a lot. Or I'd say, how interesting that I think I'm right about that and not open to someone else being right. By naming it, I gave myself some distance from it and was better able to see it as separate from who I am as a human. Then, as I saw the feeling and thought on an ongoing basis, I could see it and not hide from it. Okay, the second tool is understand where it came from. Our behaviors come from fear, trauma, or learned patterns, and all of these want to keep us safe. If we micromanage, maybe no one ever let us feel safe unless we were in control. Now that makes sense. I can relate to this. I've had the exact same tendencies and anxieties. I can see the fear and patterns this came from. I can see how it wasn't always emotionally safe for me to make mistakes. Compassion creates space for curiosity, not blame. Ownership, not deflection. In my own patterns of superiority and needing to be right, seeing where it came from with curiosity and no judgment for those who passed it to me gave me space to be curious with myself and less judgmental towards myself. I saw how this thought and belief was woven into the soundtrack of almost every part of my life. Seeing how it was passed to me from my parents, from my religion, and other influential figures has given me control over changing it with grace for me and everyone who passed it on to me. Okay, third, regulate our nervous systems. When guilt or fear arise, our body feels threatened. We need to ground ourselves. To do this, place one hand on your heart, then take 3 slow breaths. Remind yourself, it's safe to grow. I am a human like everyone else. I'm allowed to make mistakes. In fact, this is how I learn and grow. I can face this gently. About a year ago, I was in a store and this man got really mad at me. The details don't matter. It was minor. He was in the right and I had inadvertently done something wrong. Because I know how this intense initial feeling of shame flows through my body, I felt it instantly. My heart started beating like crazy as he called me out. The first thing I did was notice the feeling and breathe deeply into it. Even somewhat dysregulated inside, the breathing allowed me to kindly apologize without attacking him back and right my wrong. I could tell the people around me were actually horrified at the man for how he was acting. As I reflected on the exchange and how I handled my own feelings, I was grateful that I regulated myself and knew the emotions would pass. It only takes 90 seconds for an emotion to pass through us if we don't recreate the scene mentally and feel it again. After 90 seconds, I had created my own safety and was talking quite compassionately to myself. This has taken a lot of practice in smaller, less charged situations. Confidence is knowing how our nervous system is responding and feeling capable to handle it. Okay, fourth tool, apologize without over-explaining. If your child or anyone was affected by our behavior, a simple emotional anchored acknowledgement can go a long way. I realize I've been putting my stress on you. I'm learning how to handle it better. I love you. This models healthy accountability without emotional dumping. Apologies should be simple, to the point, and not bring up anything in the past or ancillary that would distract from our misstep. No justifications, no long excuses and blaming others. Simply, I was wrong to do this, I'm working on this, and I'm doing it because I want to improve and grow our relationship. Our relationship is a priority. I've noticed how my husband and my children, they will soften and walls will come down when I own my weaknesses and say, I'm really sorry I didn't handle that situation in a way I'm proud of. I wish I had done this. I'm going to do better next time. This is one of the best steps to model to our kids. I know I need to do an entire episode on apologizing. This alone changes relationships and is a sign of an emotionally healthy state. Okay, fifth step or tool. Choose one next right step. Don't try to fix everything at once. Y'all, growth is slow and nonlinear. Ask, what's one way I can show up different this week? My client who is working on not nagging and managing her own anxieties took each day, each week at a time. She acknowledged each time she wanted to nag and she didn't. We celebrated each one. And she apologized or acknowledged to her son when her questions maybe came off as managing her own anxieties. We didn't make perfection the goal. We focused on just the next step. I have had to grow in the exact same way as my children have grown, moved out, where I know so much less and have anxieties and fears. I focus on how I'll handle just the next situation, not too much. Let's say on self-reflection, you notice you share too much about other people. Focus on one interaction and how you won't gossip, how you'll only speak positive. Maybe self-reflection reveals you do spend too much money and don't track items monthly, so the family is overspending each month. Focus on one trip to the store and being conscious. Then focus on spending for one day. Then celebrate the wins. Acknowledge each step, each change, not because we're becoming better people. We were good before and are good always. Celebrate growth and building solid relationships. And y'all, this is exactly why we are willing to self-reflect and face our own humanness with grace. When we approach ourselves with compassion, we stop parenting from fear. We reduce reactivity and increase connection, which is what we and our children are hardwired for. Our child sees us as a real human and learns to be one too. They will model what they see. When they see us speaking about ourselves with compassion and grace, this is what will be comfortable and familiar to them. Our vulnerability becomes permission for them to mess up, reflect, grow, and come back. This fosters emotional safety, not perfection. And that's what they'll carry with them, not our mistakes, but our modeling of grace and resilience. To end with, I want you to really hear these words in your soul. Close your eyes and breathe this in. You're not a perfect mother. You were never meant to be. You are human, doing your best, learning as you go. And that's more than enough. The bravest thing you can do is look inward with eyes of truth and a heart of grace. That's how we change. That's how we stay connected. That's how we raise emotionally healthy humans, which the world needs more of. We've got this. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend who's also navigating this season. And if you'd like to work with me one-on-one to learn how to strengthen your emotional anchors, visit HeidiBenjaminson.com. That's it for this week. A confident mother is the greatest gift to her family, not a perfect mother. Our families want us to feel confident, anchored, and calm. I can help you uncover this version of yourself. Have a great week.